stand by for the President of the United States.
Colonel Graby, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. We hear you loud and clear.
What happened? Can you guys hear me up there all right?
We hear you loud and clear, Mr. President.
Loud and clear. Well, let me just say to Commander Graby and all the rest of you all, I'm here with a lot of the young astronauts and some of the older astronauts, as a matter of fact, four of the crews here in the White House complex, and we just called up to wish you well. The Vice President is with me. Admiral Truly is with me, and we just want to get from you all how it's doing down there. A lot of these kids want to get going and get out to Mars. And you got any advice, first of all, for these young guys here, young kids, boys and girls?
Well, certainly, Mr. President, for any young astronauts that want to pursue a career as an astronaut, they ought to be emphasizing math and science in their studies and just doing as well as they can. It's a long, hard road to get there, and it takes a little luck along the way as well, but it's certainly worth the effort.
We've been talking a little bit about the contribution that these journeys make to science. Can you tell us a little bit about the, in layman's terms, please, about the experiments that you all are conducting?
Well, sir, let me turn that over to Norm Taggart. He's our payload commander here on my right.
Well, Mr. President, taking the experiments to orbit is an excellent way to do experiments in some areas of science, and it makes this whole journey well worthwhile. The two principal things that are areas that come to mind are physiology, both plant and animal, and crystal growing, and other material science experiments. And we have some 55 experiments, I think, in the IML complement. Most of those are working even as we speak, and it is our plan to do some more TV, some more explanation later on about some more details of that science.
Well, that is very interesting. Now, if you guys have a couple of more minutes, we don't want to detract you from all this experimentation, but it might be fun if one of these young astronauts, or maybe a couple, would like to... Here comes my man. He's back. This guy just gave a great speech here. Tell him your name and see if you got a question for him.
My name is Russell Frisbee, and here's my question. What's it like in zero gravity?
Did you get that?
The question, as we understood, was what... Yes, sir, we understood the question to be what's it like in zero gravity, and let's turn that over to Bill Reedy, who's on Norm's left.
It's great. Just floating around and everything. And a lot of things, it just makes a whole lot easier. Aside from putting your pants on both legs at the same time, it's easy to translate back and forth, and makes it a whole lot easier to do a lot of the science, because any particular orientation you choose works the same as any other.
What's he doing? That makes it all very clear. Thank you. Any other? You come on. You come up and ask one. This is a rare opportunity. Fire away.
I wanted to know.
So they can hear it.
I wanted to know what was your favorite experiment you've taken up so far?
Well, it sounds like a good question for Steve Oswald, our pilot, to answer. Steve's over here on Bill's left.
Actually, I guess I'm not sure that being in the front of the bus, we're working the experiments all that hard, but we've got the IMAX camera aboard, and Bill and Ron and I have been having a great time taking those movies that you see on the big screen. And we're taking pictures right now for a movie that'll be coming out here within a year or two.
I would like to...
Breaking out the camera for the IMAX.
Oh.
So I can just show that to you how big it is.
They're asking about what's great about zero G. Well, this camera on Earth probably weighs about 110, 120 pounds. And even a big moose like ours has trouble hefting it but you can see you can quite easily do it with just fingers.
The camera probably weighs as much as Roberta, who's manipulating it right now, and you can see she has no trouble at all with it.
That's great. You have one?
Mr. President, the one crew member.
Which one do you like better, being in space or being on Earth?
Well, I'd like to introduce our Canadian payload specialist, Roberta Bonder, who will be glad to answer that one.
Well, actually, living both in space and on the Earth really makes you appreciate the good and the bad of both. I think right now we're enjoying very much the limited opportunity we've had so far of being up here. We've certainly enjoyed looking back at the Earth during our brief moments when we're not in the lab working the sciences, and we're really looking forward to our return to Earth to bring back all the scientific information and all the enthusiasm and experience that we've gained in this flight. So for all of us, I think right now we're just enjoying where we are, and we're going to be enjoying where we're going to be when we come back. And I think it's just great to have had this opportunity to be flying with this great crew.
Dr. Bondar, this is not a young astronaut. This is the President speaking now, but I just want to say how pleased we are that you representing Canada are a fundamental part of this. I think it's a wonderful thing, and I think in a wonderful way it shows the strength of ties between our two great countries. So I understand the Prime Minister, my friend Brian Mulroney, called. Did he actually get through the other day?
That was right about the time we were having our briefing just near lunchtime, and instead I had a lovely telegram from him, and he wished us all well and Godspeed.
Well, keep up the good work. Now, if you got time for one more question, we got a real eager one right here. Front of the line. Here we go. See if you can get so they can...
I wonder how you feel in space.
I think the question was, how do we feel in space?
Yeah.
Well, in space, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it. When you first get up, you might feel just the slightest bit queasy or so, but by about today, this is our third day in space, we're beginning to adapt pretty well. I think you can see we all feel pretty comfortable up here. So after you get over the initial adjustment, you can live in space quite well and do things that you do on Earth.
Well, some of the older astronauts are actually in space now, and anything that can give you the enthusiasm that a kid has got to be a great experience, and I feel like I'm about 12.
Well, we go. You get yours in there. You can have it.
What planets have you seen?
What planets have you seen?
Well, of course, we got the world's greatest view of our world, but on some of our night passes, we could see Saturn and Jupiter and Mars and Venus. It's really spectacular up here. Hope we could go to Mars here one of these days.
We're going to keep trying to get this program geared up to do just that, and maybe, just maybe, Colonel, one of these kids here today will be a part of that. Maybe sooner, maybe later, but I'll bet one of them will be a part of that mission. But listen, I'm told we gotta run on, but we got a lot of eager questioners, but unfortunately, I guess we don't have the time. But we certainly want to wish you well. Your fellow astronauts are standing here quietly in the shadows, and I know that they are wishing you well, the successful conclusion of this productive journey, and you have our blessings and our support. And keep up the fine work. You're on the cutting edge, and you're setting a great example for the rest of our country, the rest of the world. Congratulations, and thanks for taking the time out.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. We certainly want to thank you for taking the time. I want to wish all the young astronauts luck in their careers.
Well, the worldwide television audience for today's game is estimated at around 750 million people. But what about the audience out of this world? Joining us now live from the Space Shuttle Discovery in orbit some 163 nautical miles or 3,300 football fields above the Indian Ocean on the opposite side of the planet. From Minneapolis, our shuttle commander, Ron Gravy. He is the gentleman in the Redskin hat. I wonder who he's pulling for, Greg. Pilot Steve Oswald. Welcome to the Super Bowl today, gentlemen. Tell us, we see a lot going on there. What are we looking at?
Well, Greg and Terry, we're real happy to be with you. What you're looking at here is the Space Lab module that we have in the payload bay of the Shuttle Discovery. And let me call some of our payload crew members, Norm Zaggart and Roberta Bonder, up forward, and they can give you a little idea of what's been going on.
Well, Greg and Terry, this is a Space Lab mission, and that means science, so we've been performing one of our vestibular experiments, and we'll break away from that and join Ron, I guess.
Well, tell me, gentlemen, let's get your thoughts on today's game since we've taken you away from your work temporarily.
Well, actually, Greg, we were kind of hoping that Houston was going to be in today's game, but it looks like you've got a couple of great teams that are going to go at it. We're just sorry that we don't have a way of receiving the game up here, and besides that, NASA's keeping us a little busy today.
I've got to ask you this. How in the world are you going to keep tabs on the game, find out who's winning?
Well, we think Houston will keep us pretty well informed.
You hope so. Anyway, here, how would a coin toss work in zero gravity? Would that present some problems?
Well, we thought about that. We hoped you'd ask, so we have a little demonstration here. I'm going to give the coin to Roberta Bonder here. She's our Canadian payload specialist. She knows a little more about Canadian football than American football, but nonetheless she's interested, and we'll see about a zero-G coin toss.
Unbelievable.
I don't suppose we should call heads or...
Greg?
Looks like it's heads, Greg.
Terry and Greg, as you can see in zero-G, the coin never comes down, so we'll just have to defer the coin toss for the official pregame ceremony.
Well, we hope they'll keep you advised of what's happening, and we sure appreciate you having taken time out of your busy schedule. We wish you a terrific mission and a happy touchdown next Wednesday.
Thanks very much. We're delighted to have taken part.
And, of course, we are looking for our fair share of touchdowns here today. Well, we waited almost 2.5 hours to say this. When we come back, our final thoughts.
Discovery, this is Cologne for Commander Ron Graves.
Roger, Cologne. This is Discovery. Commander Ron Gravy speaking.
Discovery, this is Mr. Luton speaking. Dr. Komolka, Dr. Eisenhuber, and myself will speak in this order. Now, Dr. Komolka first.
Discovery, hier ist Komolka. Ich grüße den Commander Ron Grave und seine Crew von der STS 42.
Ja, danke sehr, Herr Präsident. Ich möchte Ulf Merbold als Mitglied unserer Besatzung vorstellen. Sie haben sicher ein paar Fragen an ihn. Soweit ist es uns gelungen, ein erfolgreiches Flug zu haben. Und hier ist Ulf.
Vielen Dank. Herr Merbold, Sie sind der erste deutsche Astronaut, der aus dem Weltraum das vereinigte Deutschland sieht. Mich interessiert besonders, welche Eindrücke Sie von Mecklenburg-Vorpommern haben, dem Land des Ministerpräsidenten ich bin.
Ja, die letzte Runde um die Erdkugel sind wir über Mecklenburg-Vorpommern hinweggeflogen. Das ist jetzt gerade eine Stunde her. Und jetzt sind wir schon wieder über dem Atlantischen Ozean und werden in 20 Minuten über Südfrankreich fliegen. Es ist natürlich immer sehr schön, wenn man das eigene Heimatland aus dem Weltraum sieht, aber es dauert nur eine Minute, dann ist man nicht nur über Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, sondern über ganz Deutschland drüber hinweggeflogen.
Herr Merbold, ich weiß, dass Sie einen Teil Ihrer Freizeit opfern. Als kleines Äquivalent ich lade Sie ein, nicht nur eine Minute, sondern eine Woche oder länger, sich einmal das anzusehen, was Sie aus dem Weltraum betrachten können. Herzlich willkommen, schon Jens.
Ihre Einladung.
Hallo?
Ja, Entschuldigung, dass ich Sie unterbrochen habe.
Nein, ich wollte nur eine Einladung aussprechen und ich möchte Sie gleichzeitig bitten, bei der Gelegenheit auch die Satellitenempfangsstation in Neustrelitz zu besuchen.
Ihre Einladung nehmen wir natürlich oder nehme ich gerne an und freue mich darauf, auch die Satellitenstation in Neustrelitz zu besichtigen.
Vielen Dank. Herr Merbold, hat sich Ihr Körper und Ihrer Kollegen schon an die Weltraumerfahrung gewöhnt? Wie ist Ihre Erfahrung jetzt?
Ja, wir haben uns also alle schon sehr gut angepasst und ich sollte vielleicht auch noch hinzufügen, dass ich hier mit einer außerordentlich erfahrenen Crew, mit einer sehr erfahrenen Besatzung unterwegs bin. Hinter mir arbeitet Norman Zaggart, er fliegt jetzt zum 4. Mal im Weltraum, unser Commander Ron Gravy zum 3. Mal. Und wir haben noch einen zweiten, nämlich meinen Arbeitspartner Dave Hilmers, er ist auch schon zum 4. Mal im Weltraum unterwegs. Und es hilft natürlich, die Anpassungszeit zu verkürzen.
Discovery, this is Mr. Luton speaking. Dr. Komolka has finished. Now Dr. Eisenhuber will speak.
Discovery, this is Heinz Riesenhuber speaking. Herr Commander, es freut mich, dass Sie so ein ausgezeichnetes Deutsch sprechen. Und meine besten Grüße und meine besten Wünsche gehen zu Ihnen und Ihren Kollegen.
Dankeschön, das ist sehr nett von Ihnen zu sagen, aber auf einmal habe ich gut Deutsch sprechen können, aber das war eine lange Zeit vorher.
Es ist schön, dass Deutsch eine selbstverständliche Sprache auch im Weltraum wird. Herr Merbold,
Danke.
wir haben ja vor 9 Jahren schon mal miteinander gesprochen, als Sie zum ersten Mal im Weltraum gewesen sind. Sie haben jetzt bei Ihrem Flug den größten Teil Ihrer Arbeiten erledigt. Und was ich jetzt in den Gesprächen mit vielen Leuten höre, ist, was erwarten Sie sich von den Ergebnissen? Hilft es uns, was Sie im Raum tun, hier auf der Erde, um unsere Arbeit voranzubringen?
Ja, mit Sicherheit. Die Missionen, an denen ich bis jetzt beteiligt war, sind immer sehr ergiebig gewesen, was die wissenschaftliche Ausbeute angeht. Und dieses Mal wieder, wir haben sehr viele Experimente, die sich mit der menschlichen Physis beschäftigen, insbesondere mit dem Vestibularorgan. Außerdem sind wir bestrebt, gute Einkristalle herzustellen aus Materialien, die auch große praktische Bedeutung haben, als Röntgendetektoren oder Infrarotdetektoren. Und ich bin persönlich optimistisch, dass die meisten Experimente sehr gute Ergebnisse erbringen werden.
Herr Merbold, ist ja über die einzelnen Experimente hinaus eine großartige Sache, wie sich eine internationale Partnerschaft entwickelt hat. Einer Ihrer Kollegen wird in 6 Wochen zur russischen Raumstation hier fliegen. Und in einem Jahr werden wir die nächste D2-Mission haben. Wo sehen Sie eigentlich in der langfristigen Strategie aus der Distanz des Weltraums betrachtet die Möglichkeit, dass so eine internationale Zusammenarbeit hier uns helfen wird, auf der Erde friedlich zusammenzuleben und unsere Probleme zu lösen, die wir hier unten haben?
Ja, das ist natürlich ein abendfüllendes Thema. Meine amerikanischen Freunde und Kollegen und ich genießen ja das Privileg, unseren Globus in 90 Minuten zu umrunden. Und da werden die einzelnen Länder, aus denen wir kommen, eigentlich sehr irrelevant. Es ist aus dieser Position sehr deutlich, dass wir auf einem Raumschiff durch den Weltraum fliegen, dem Raumschiff Erde. Und es ist deswegen unsere Überzeugung, dass es für uns alle die beste Verfahrensweise ist, wenn wir zusammenarbeiten, um die Probleme auf der Erde zu lösen. Und ich glaube, der Weltraum, der hat eine doppelte Bedeutung. Einmal eine philosophische, nämlich die Erkenntnis, dass wir alle zusammen durch den finsteren Weltraum fliegen. Und das Zweite ist die praktische Bedeutung, dass wir vom Weltraum aus die globalen Zusammenhänge studieren können.
Wir wollen weiterhin guten Flug, in guter Kameradschaft, mit guten der Wissenschaft und in einem guten Geist.
Vielen herzlichen Dank.
Discovery, this is Mr. Luton speaking again. Dr. Eisenhuber has finished. Now I am speaking. My greetings to Commander Grabe and to the STS-42 crew.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luton. We appreciate that. This is an international flight, an international crew, and we're very privileged to be a part of it.
Discovery, 6 Europeans are flying this year in space. How do you feel about this?
Well, I think space is a unique place to do scientific experiments for various reasons. There's weightlessness for a very long period of time. There's no atmosphere. And we also have a global view such that we can study our own home planet. And therefore, I think there's a tremendous potential for scientific experiments.
We will soon reach the turn of the century. How do you see the next steps of ESA in space?
Oh, the turn of the century, I think, from my personal point of view, that it is clear that we should work together on a global scale, and I'm a very privileged man that I have already an opportunity now to fly in orbit with the finest astronauts of the United States of America, and I think we, from a European point of view, can learn a lot from them, and I feel personally that we should intensify the cooperation because we can learn a lot, and if we pull our potential, then I think we can accomplish a lot.
Discovery, this is Mr. Luton speaking again. I have finished. It is time to conclude. Our best wishes of success for the STS-42 mission to the whole crew. Thank you, Commander Grabe, and goodbye.
Thank you very much, Mr. Luton. It's been a real pleasure.
Discovery Houston, that concludes the call. Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Discovery Houston, we've got a good downlink video of you. Are you ready for your call from Canada?
Houston, Discovery is ready for the call from Canada.
Toronto, Houston, please go ahead with your call.
Discovery, this is Toronto for Commander Ron Graby.
Toronto, this is Discovery, Commander Ron Graby speaking. Your voice quality is loud and clear.
Good evening, Commander Graby. This is Jay Ingram at the Ontario Science Centre in Toronto. Prime Minister Brian Mulroney is standing by in Ottawa, and the Minister for Science, William Weingard, is with me, right beside me here in Toronto. Congratulations to you and all your crew on a very successful flight so far.
Well, Jay, on behalf of the entire crew of IML-1, we'd certainly like to thank you. We have been very fortunate so far. The flight's gone very well. We're very pleased with that. At this point, I would like to turn things over to and introduce Dr. Roberta Bonder.
Good evening, Jay.
Hello, Dr. Bonder. To start things off, the Right Honourable Brian Mulroney, the Prime Minister, is waiting in Ottawa, and he's ready to speak with you right now.
Good evening, Roberta, and congratulations on becoming Canada's second space traveler. As you know, this is a year of celebration in Canada, our 125th birthday, and your flight has captured the imagination of all of your fellow Canadians probably in a way that you couldn't have imagined. And the success of this international mission has demonstrated to the world that anything can be achieved with dedication and cooperation. And I'm delighted to have this opportunity to congratulate you on what you and your colleagues have achieved so far, and to wish you all well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. It's been indeed an honor and a privilege to be on board this particular mission. We've had a great deal of science accomplished so far in this flight, and we still have a couple more days, we hope, to be able to do a little bit more. We've enjoyed being with each other and working with each other and learning new things about the world and about how we work and how we view science. And it's just been a fantastic experience, and I just can't wait to get back and start telling people all about it.
Roberta, I spoke earlier today with Ken Money, who told me that you had spent a little time just studying countries as they went by. And I understand that you caught a glimpse of Canada during your mission. What struck you most during the sight?
Well, at lunchtime today, I had a tape on, I had a cassette tape on at the front, and I actually had a recording of that I had recorded for me before I came up here of Canada. And I just happened to go up to the flight deck, and we were going right over Canada, and it was just fantastic. Although it's wintertime, and we were going over the northern part of Canada, we went across the Northwest Territories, down across into Quebec and Ontario, and you could certainly go back and you could recognize all the land features. It was just absolutely fantastic. There were very, very few clouds around. And I must say that for people who think that our country, when it's wintertime, is not exciting, let me tell you, it's exceptionally exciting from space. Very, very clear. And I just can't, I wish I could just have a foot down and walk across every mile of this beautiful country, because it just looks so exciting from up here. It's just beautiful.
Roberta, vous êtes dans l'espace depuis déjà 7 jours. Est-ce que la vie dans l'espace est très différente de la vie sur Terre? Parce que vous venez de dire que un peu mon pays, c'est l'hiver.
Oui, bien sûr, il y a beaucoup de différences dans l'espace. Par exemple, pour les repas, si vous voulez, c'est possible de manger le yogourt, par exemple, mais c'est possible dans l'espace de jouer avec la nourriture. Par exemple, le yogourt, c'est comme ça. Avec le cuir. C'est pour le repas, c'est nécessaire aussi de fixer solidement sur le mur, le plancher, le plafond. Sur n'importe quelle surface, on doit utiliser parce que c'est la même chose. Le mur, c'est le même que le plafond, le plancher, c'est la même chose et c'est très intéressant.
C'est excellent pour la diète.
La diète, ce n'est pas exactement comme la cuisine francophone, mais pour l'espace, il y a les petites bonbons de sirop d'érable, par exemple.
Roberta, Canadians across the country have been following your mission with great interest and pride. I wonder if you have a special message for them tonight.
Well, I think our country has much to be proud of in terms of things we've accomplished for our own country, especially in the field of science. I'm very, very proud to be a Canadian as part of this crew. And I think that all Canadians should be very pleased with the things that we do, different things, the variety of things we do, and the wonderful things that we share in our culture and our spirit. I think our country has great potential, and I think it's up to each one of us to be sure that we achieve our potential, especially the young people.
Well, Roberta, all Canadians are proud of you and what you've achieved, and I'd like to congratulate your other crew members as well on this splendid achievement, and on behalf of all Canadians, wish you all a very safe journey home. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
Mr. Prime Minister, on behalf of the entire crew, thank you very much for those wishes.
Dr. Bondar, this is Jay Ingram back in Toronto again. Thank you very much, Mr. Mulrooney. I have with me the Honorable William Weingard, the Minister for Science, and I think he'd like to take over and talk to you now.
Well, Roberta, it doesn't seem possible that when you graduated from the University of Guelph, that all these years later we would have the opportunity to talk like this. It is quite thrilling for us. I have 700,
Thank you very much.
700 people in the Ontario Science Centre, 200 of whom are children, many Girl Guides. They have asked me to ask you one special question. What's it like up there?
Well, it's very, very exciting. It's really something to be able to just float around and drift around and just sort of at nighttime not worry about your pillow or your bed. And you have to have good buddies like Commander Graby here to grab you back down to earth a bit up here in space. But the most exciting part of it, besides working the science, is to be able to have some perspective on where we are in the world today and to be able to look down from space on a beautiful planet. There is a crisp, beautiful, clear, brilliant blue atmosphere that we see, and we see it all the time. We have been in the sunlight on the orbiter for days. We haven't had night for a while. We haven't had the darkness shine on the orbiter yet. And it has been absolutely incredible looking down and seeing all the countries without boundaries, everything blended into one. And you can't see people down there. Sometimes you can see the results of the work that people have done. But for the most part, you get this incredible feeling that the whole world is such a unique place and is all one. And we should try to preserve it that way. And I really feel very, very strongly that we are certainly an all-one planet.
Some of the children also have an interest in the Canadian IMX motion picture camera. They want to know if it's still functioning well on its 9th journey into space.
It's functioning very well. In fact, we've had a lot of fun taking some IMAX footage of the work we've been doing here. Commander Graves is just going to come over and get a film canister. This is what it looks like. Now, on Earth, of course, I wouldn't be able to lift it like this. But in space, it can float by itself. So we're trying to get footage up here on what it's like to actually live up here, the kind of science that we need to do in order to be able to understand what it's like to be in space and to help us solve some of those mysteries that we've discovered. And actually, what we've discovered in this site, there are a lot more mysteries that have to be looked into and questions raised and problems and experiments to solve in the future and years ahead. So I think that for the IMAX filming, it's going to be most exciting to be able to see this laboratory, hopefully on the screen one day, and you'll be able to see more clearly the kinds of things we've been able to do in the last few days up here in space.
Thank you. One last word from me, Roberta. I must say that your somersaulting on Sunday was much more interesting than the game.
Well, thanks very much, and I want you to know that Yankee tender and Canadian tender are worth the same up here.
This is Jay Ingram again, Dr. Bondar. Thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us, and thank you also, Commander Graby, for setting time aside for us to be able to talk to you both from Toronto here, William Weingart and myself, and for the Prime Minister, Mr. Mulrooney in Ottawa. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We thank you.
Discovery Houston, we have good downlink video from the lab. You ready for the press conference on Air to Ground 2?
Houston Discovery, we're ready for the conference.
Roger, Discovery, stand by from the Marshall Press Center. Marshall, go with your call.
Discovery, this is the Marshall Press Center. We're ready to begin the press conference if you are.
Marshall Press Center, you're loud and clear, and we're ready to begin.
Good morning. I have a question for Dr. Bondar. We don't have too many Canadians in space, so I'd like to start off with her. It's Mike Omelis from Broadcast News Canada. Dr. Bondar, I wonder if you could describe those 3 hours sitting in the shuttle waiting to take off last Wednesday. What was it like? What were you thinking about? And then could you describe that ride up to the heavens?
Well, it was certainly a thrill just even sitting there with my colleagues. We were ready to grasp hands every time they gave us a go when we were able to proceed with the countdown. And when we actually got to the point of liftoff, it was just absolutely wonderful to be on the middeck hearing the flight crew sing "Marvelous, Marvelous."
Canadian Broadcasting Corporation for Roberta Bonder. Roberta, we know how much you were looking forward to looking down at the planet and out to the stars. Can you share with us just what your thoughts and feelings have been as you've done that?
Well, it's very, very difficult to describe, and I think that's what everybody says. My impression of the planet Earth is there's certainly the title of Blue Planet is a good one because the crisp, shiny, bright jewel that we have, we could see the limb of the Earth when I first got to the window. It was one of the first things I wanted to do. And it was very, very exciting for me to be able to look down. And when I first came over Canada, it was the biggest thrill imaginable, winter or no winter. It has to be, it's just absolutely beautiful and spectacular. And I'm coming back to Earth with a feeling that there is absolutely nothing boring. There is no boring place anywhere in this whole planet.
Joanne Arcan de Radio-Canada, une question en français pour le docteur Bondar. Docteur Bondar, les scientifiques semblent très satisfaits du travail que vous faites actuellement. Est-ce que c'est véritablement un défi de faire des expériences qui ont été préparées par 200 scientifiques?
Je m'excuse, mais c'est très difficile de vous comprendre. Est-ce que c'est possible de répéter la question ou peut-être en anglais, si vous voulez?
Bondar, Kevin Bissett from CFBC Radio in St. John, New Brunswick. What's been the most difficult thing to adapt to in space?
Si la question c'est au sujet des expériences dans l'espace, c'est très difficile pour les scientifiques dans l'espace de faire des expériences exactement comme sur la Terre parce qu'on doit flotter dans l'espace et il y a beaucoup de temps. On doit avoir beaucoup de temps de faire des expériences ici que la Terre, que sur la Terre.
Okay, again, it's Kevin Bissett from CFBC Radio in St. John, New Brunswick. Dr. Bondar, if you could tell us what's been the most difficult thing to adapt to in space.
Well, for me, it's been really easy with this crew that we're having here. Everybody has a lot of experience in spaceflight, and they've been able to help me a lot. But for me, the most difficult thing has been to learn how to secure yourself. I think it took a couple of days for me to be able to get the hang of going between the space lab and the middeck through the tunnel without becoming totally disoriented. It's kind of an unusual feeling to come up from the middeck into the space lab and you think you're in one direction, you pop up into the space lab and bingo, you're upside down with reference to verticals that we learned on Earth.
Stephen Strauss from the Globe and Mail newspaper in Toronto. This is for Dr. Bondar. I know you're working on a book with your sister about the science of the IML mission. What will you put in the book now or emphasize having actually flown that you might not have put in before?
Well, I've been trying to keep some rigorous notes and a daily diary on tape about some of the aspects of doing science in space and some of the things that we need to not only tell the young people who I hope will read the book, but also our scientists who want to put on experiments in spaceflight. I also would like to include a little bit more about daily living up here because it is fun. We've had a good time together, and there are a lot of little tricks that you learn up here and a lot of experience that you can gain from others in terms of trying to make this a wonderful environment in which to live.
For Dr. Bonder, Yves Savory, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. The question that you were asked in French, Dr. Bonder, you had said it was the biggest open book exam of your life. How has that played out?
Well, it was not an underestimation, let me tell you. When you first start up, at least for me, here in the Space Lab, we first started up the series of experiments, you work with sweaty palms because you know how much work the scientists have put into putting the experiments together. We only hope that the data that they're going to get back from this space mission will be reflective of all our caring and effort that we put in up here. So in terms of the open book exam, I hope that when we get back, we all get 4 A's.
My question will be directed to Dr. Bondar. My name is Réal Damour de Radio-Canada. Roberta, vous avez pratiqué, vous avez répété les expériences sur Terre pendant 2 ans. Est-ce que ça se passe comme prévu dans l'espace?
Bonjour Réal, est-ce que c'est possible de répéter la question? Maintenant, je pense que c'est possible de vous écouter.
Roberta, bonjour. Vous avez répété pendant 2 ans ces expériences dans le Space Lab ici au Marshall Space Center. Est-ce que ça se passe de la même façon dans l'espace?
À Marshall, l'entraînement, c'est très bon, mais dans l'espace, c'est très difficile de faire des expériences dans la même période de temps. C'est-à-dire, il faut utiliser beaucoup de temps pour faire des expériences dans l'espace que sur la Terre à Marshall.
My name is Klaus Walter. I'm asking Ulf Merbold for ZDF German TV. Ulf, I first would like to ask you in English and switch to German. After your first spaceflight, you spoke of the vulnerability of the planet Earth. Now, well, back into space, what do you think, how can we on Earth get profit out of the space and the conditions you found there? Sie oben im Weltraum vorgefunden haben, Ulf Merbold, können wir uns auf der Erde denn in der Zukunft einmal zunutze machen?
I think there is no question. Space flight, from my perspective, has a lot of potential. First of all, we use space as a unique laboratory and do experiments in all different scientific areas, Earth observation, material science, life sciences, and so on. And all the knowledge gained there will help to make life on Earth better. In addition, spaceflight requires, let's say, high-tech approaches. For that reason, technology is stimulated. And a classical example of this kind is the Apollo program. I think it stimulated tremendously the development of the integrated circuits because only very powerful but light and very reliable computers allowed the Americans to fly to the moon. In addition, there's also a philosophical dimension. It's for the first time in human history that we have the means in hand to leave the planet. And I think that will change our views. And therefore, there's no question in my mind that spaceflight is important, and it would be a tremendous mistake not to do it.
This is Daria Robinson of the European Space Agency. I have questions now from our press watching you directly from Europe. The first one from Piet Smulders, Dutch space writer of VARA Television. Ulf, almost 10 years ago you made your first space flight. Is there a distinct difference between your personal experience then and now from a psychological and physiological point of view?
Now, my first space flight was 8 years ago. I think I'm 8 years older, but that makes it easier for me.
Question from Richard Schurman, Dutch space editor, Pers Unis Velse Courant. What, to Ron Graby, what has been the most exciting and unexpected event during this IML mission so far?
Well, the most exciting event for any space flight, I think, really has to be the ascent phase. The first 8.5 minutes, you're really at the focal point of the unleashing of a lot of power, and regardless of what happens after that, that's still got to be the most exciting thing that you're going to experience.
German television again. Ulf Merbold, do you think that, in your opinion, should space exploration continue in national programs, or do you see any chance to get more cooperation instead of more competition, even through the costs will be reduced?
Oh, my mind is very clear. I'm in favor of cooperation. And I think the IML flight, the flight we are on right now, is a classical example for a cooperative program, because we have an international crew, we have experiments from many different nations, and I think that is the way to do it.
Ulf Merbold, was würden Sie sich denn von den Deutschen wünschen in Sachen Weltraumpolitik? Muss mehr für die Weltraumpolitik, für die Erforschung des Weltraums in Deutschland auch der Jugend beigebracht werden?
Ich glaube, wir brauchen nur eine klare politische Linie beibehalten, und zwar in Richtung internationale Beteiligung an Weltraumprogrammen.
Another question for Ulf from Ralf Hupertz from Raumfahrtinfodienst. After your second experience in space, what advice do you give to future colleagues who will be exposed on Columbus to long-duration flights?
Well, I think I'm not really in the position to give good advice, because if I'm lucky, I will spend 18 days in orbit, which is not a very long period of time. I think the best people to give advice are the Russians.
Ulf Merbold. Ulf, was war für Sie denn jetzt der größte Unterschied im Gegensatz zu Ihrer ersten Mission?
Ja, die erste Mission, die ist für mich etwas aufregender abgelaufen als die zweite. Ja, aber ich glaube, das ist immer so im Leben. Das zweite Mal ist dann schon etwas mehr Routine dabei.
This is Brian Magruder with the CBS television affiliate in Huntsville, Alabama. This is for any of the crew members who've been experiencing the sickness in the rotating chair. Did you have that problem when you attempted the rotating chair on Earth, and why do you suppose you are experiencing the sickness problems now?
Okay, well, somehow I managed to get this one. The rotating chair can be a challenge at times, but I think in general we've been able to get through most of it. A lot of folks, probably about 2/3 of folks, are a little bit queasy on the first couple of days. Anytime you're doing any motion, it tends to exacerbate it. The chair induces motion, so as you might understand, it also exacerbates any queasiness you're having.
Good morning. I'm Kerry Martin from the NBC affiliate here in Huntsville, Alabama. Lieutenant Colonel David Hilmers, I read that you've become fairly relaxed in this nauseating motion experiment. What is your mindset going into some of these experiments? Are you personally and genuinely interested, or is it more like a giant playground where you get to play with the toys, and do you leave the interpretation for the doctors and scientists here on Earth?
Okay, I'm not sure I heard all the question. There was something about me being relaxed going into the experiments. I actually have found the MBI experiment to be one that I have difficulty sometimes staying awake during. And I found myself today trying to sing the Marine Corps hymn or any other song that has a lively beat to try to stay awake. But I find it kind of relaxing. I enjoy the medical aspects and the physiological aspects of the data and what it might provide for a future basis for solving some of the problems that we have going into space. And I look forward a great deal to finding out what the results will be. We've all put a lot of effort into training for this, and here on orbit, riding the chair. And when we get back home, we're not finished yet. We still have a few more days of data collection to take yet. So we're going to be most interested in seeing whether our results will be as fruitful as all the work that we put into it.
Robert Donovan with the Birmingham News. I've been impressed by the bilingual international crew aspect of this. When are we going to begin to see some Russians up there with you, and do you have any influence you can exert? You're going to try to do that.
Well, I guess Ron's handed it to the only single lingual member of the crew here. Everybody else is at least bilingual. But I guess things are changing in the world so rapidly right now that it sure is tough to call that one. But I would not be surprised to see the United States and our allies in Europe and other places in the world working together with the Russians and pooling our technology to accomplish the goals of all mankind.
The last question.
This is Klaus Wolter from German television, CDF again, asking Ulf Merbold. Herr Merbold, glauben Sie denn, dass die Raumfahrt eines Tages auch mal zu einem wichtigen Hilfsmittel in der Politik werden kann? Sprich, dass man praktisch aus der Ferne heraus die Erde näher zueinander bringt durch gemeinsame Raumfahrtprogramme?
Würden Sie Ihre Frage bitte nochmal wiederholen? Ich habe leider nicht alles verstehen können.
Einmal ein wichtiges Hilfsmittel der Politik werden, ein noch wichtigeres Hilfsmittel der Politik werden, um die Erde enger zusammenzubringen.
Wir Astronauten haben ja den meisten Erdenbürgern das Privileg voraus, diesen Globus in nur 90 Minuten zu umrunden. Und auf diese Weise ist uns allen sehr dramatisch und drastisch klar geworden, dass wir auf Dauer nur vorankommen können, indem wir auf der Erde die Probleme überwinden und lösen und friedlich zusammenarbeiten. Und die Raumfahrt neben dieser philosophischen Erkenntnis eröffnet auch große wissenschaftliche Möglichkeiten, die Umwelt zu studieren und dafür zu sorgen, dass wir angesichts von 5 Milliarden Menschen auf der Erde die Natur nicht überfordern.
Thank you, Discovery. That concludes the questions from the Marshall Press Center. Stand by now for questions from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Bill Harwood with UPI and CBS. For Ron Gravey, there's been a lot of talk lately about long-range goals in NASA, and I'm wondering how important is it, in your opinion, for NASA to have a clearly defined long-range goal off the planet? Do you think the agency has suffered in recent years without one? And for Steve Oswald, how's the view of Puget Sound and Bellingham?
Well, I guess I'll take the first one. The long-range goals that we've laid out now, I think, are pretty clear. We're going to continue in the way that we have with the shuttle, and in the near future, we'll be launching into the space station program. And after that, we have a fairly, perhaps not well-defined, but we have a clear goal in mind as to where we want to go after that, gradually staging out to the moon and then on to Mars. It's a pretty ambitious program. It's going to take a lot of years to get there. And it's not something that you can lay out a firm schedule for at this point and expect to hold over the next 20 years. But I do think that we have that strategic goal in mind, and we know the general mileposts along the way, and have a pretty good plan of how to get there. Let me turn it over to Steve. As far as being able to find Puget Sound from up here before the flight, I looked at the flight plan and counted up 11 passes where we had a chance to see Puget Sound during the daytime. And so far, I've been completely out of phase with when the weather was good in Puget Sound. I've been working back in the lab, and when it hasn't been busy in the lab, it's been cloudy over Puget Sound, which is, I guess, not uncommon for this time of year.
This is Marcia Dunn with the Associated Press. For either the commander or Dr. Thagard, both of you indicated yesterday you wanted to keep some light workloads on the extra day in space. Are you being overworked up there, and do you feel it's taking a toll?
If I could break in momentarily, we'll be LOS 1 minute. Pick you up at 0857.
We don't think we're being overworked. As a matter of fact, I think both ships from time to time have asked for some more stuff to keep busy. We are concerned, however, that we have to do baseline data collection on R+0, and traditionally crews are pretty tired then, so to help that process